Rev up your engine! Okay, in 2010, Ford started making these Raptors as off-road capable vehicles at the factory. This is a 2014 with a little over 100,000 miles. We show the pluses, the minuses. There's no arguing they're beautiful trucks. Ford got rid of the blue oval, just put Ford for the Raptors. They're plenty high enough. They're not radically high. That's why one reason I tell people don't lift trucks yourself. Let the professional engineers do it. This was designed by engineers to be this way. If you take a regular truck and start jacking stuff off, the drive shafts will break, the transmission shafts can snap off, you'll have the wrong angles. This was designed for being that tall, not radically tall, but nice and tall. Four-wheel drive standard on these things, big V8 engine. They're capable off-road vehicles. Of course, with giant tires, big V8 engine, and four-wheel drive. On a good day, it gets 13 to 14 miles a gallon. You don't buy these things for gas mileage. These things are showy enough as they are, but they do operate as off-road vehicles. You're just going to get terrible gas mileage. That's how these things are. Now, in terms of longevity, now recently at 110,000 miles, he had to do the differential over and the drive shaft. Now he changed the drive shaft because he thought the wobble was from the drive shaft, but that wasn't it. So he's got the old welded one in his garage as a spare. He replaced the differential, and he said he's planning on rebuilding the one he's got in the garage at some point in time. You treat these things rough, things will wear out. I mean, and they are rebuildable. He doesn't like wasting money, so he's going to rebuild it. Now, he has changed the shocks, he said, 3 times. This is a heavy vehicle. They're going to wear out faster, even though you can see it's got the real fancy ones in the back. They will wear out. The 6-speed automatic transmission, he thinks it's acting up. We're going to take it for a road test, and I'll analyze all the tranny data to see what's going on with that. It is the old style 6-speed. It's not this modern crazy 10-speed stuff that really costs a small fortune. And truthfully, it's got 137,000 miles. It wouldn't surprise me at all that the tranny's starting to go. That's often what happens with Ford transmissions. As we look under the hood, it is an extremely dependable, powerful 6.2-liter engine. The weakest point of this vehicle is the automatic transmission. Over the years, I've had customers, they like the vehicle. He says he loves the vehicle, other than it's gotten the shimmy now, is that the transmissions have a certain lifespan. And most of the ones I've seen, anywhere from 120 to 150, the trannies go out and they put a remanufactured one in from the factory. They want a factory remanufactured one because, hey, if it lasted that long, why not put another one in? From my experience, a lot of the transmission rebuilders, they don't know what they're doing anymore. They're getting so complex. The guys that work on them of my age have retired. I knew one of the best transmission guys in the world, Jim Shine. He's dead now. He retired over a decade and a half ago. He said things are getting so complex, so expensive to rebuild correctly, there wasn't any profit margin for him because most of the people would come in and they'd say, that's too much money. I'll just get rid of the car, get something else. So their business got to a point where it wasn't profitable. The guys that are left are often, well, they just hire somebody and throw things on, you know, the transmission rebuilders. I've seen transmission rebuilders that the guy that the month before, he was sweeping the floor with a broom and now he's a transmission rebuilder. You're always better with a factory rebuild if you're going to mess with it. The customers did that often. If it went out at 135, they'd put a factory rebuilt and 100,000 miles, they're still going down the road. That's the way to go. Because believe you me, rebuilding them, private guys, they don't do such a hot job these days. I was reading the other day, over 33% of the rebuilds at these independent rebuilding places aren't done right and have to be done again and again and again. And so many guys come to me that said, well, I had my transmission rebuilt a couple of years ago, and they bring it in, and I'll say, well, guess what? It's going out again. You can't lie to the machines. We're going to hook my machine up, and you can't lie to it. And back in the day, it was harder for you as a consumer because you take it in after they rebuild it a couple years later, say, oh no, that's okay, it's okay. It's not bad, that's okay, right? So I'm going to be using this Autel. It gives all kinds of data. And if you can see it's having problems shifting certain gears, it shows all the shift times here. And if it's more than like 0.685 of a second shifting, then you know you got a problem. Lower than that, I mean, I've seen dual clutch transmissions that'll shift in 0.05 of a second. They're so well made. This isn't that tight tolerance, but if the data is over 0.685, we'll know that, yeah, it's got a shifting problem. Now, last month, he replaced the torque converter. He thought maybe it's a torque converter. Changed the valve body, so he thought maybe it was that. He still kind of feels the vibration. You never know. We'll reset the adaptation while we're testing it out. And if a problem goes away, a lot of times you got to reset them when you do stuff like that. And he didn't have equipment to reset them. So it could be as simple as that. If it isn't, yeah, then you're looking at, you know, remanufactured transmission as time goes on. Now, he was smart because when he put the torque converter in, he put in a brand new torque converter. Now, let me tell you something. If you're going to go through the trouble of pulling off the transmission, do not use a rebuilt torque converter. Those things, they don't rebuild them all that well. You do all that work, and then if you find out, oh, gee, the torque converter's bad, because realize one thing. If you got a rebuilt torque converter, that means the one you're getting at some point in time was broken, right? And they supposedly fixed it. Maybe they didn't fix it right, and I've seen that so many times where they say, oh, this has been fixed, and the only thing they did was clean it and spray paint it. You know, they didn't do anything. So, don't change out a torque converter if you think it's shuttering. Definitely get a new one. Don't mess around with any kind of rebuild unit. It's tempting fate, and there's a lot of labor involved, so don't. Now, being a 2014, this is naturally aspirated. It doesn't have a turbocharger or a supercharger on it. And if you're the type of guy like me and the guy who owns this, you like your vehicles to last a long time, you don't like wasting money, you're better off with the naturally aspirated one. They got enough horsepower as it is. You don't need a gazillion more by putting on a supercharger or a turbocharger, and the engine will wear out fast, and of course the turbocharger will too. I've seen Fords blow them at 65,000. Ford says they're good for usually 100, but even then, you know, it's still a lot of money. If you got a dual turbo one, you got to change 2 turbos. It's a lot of money. You're better off with a naturally aspirated one. So here we go. We'll turn on the scan tool. We're going to check out the whole thing, and then when we road test it, we're going to check the tranny. We look around, you can see it. Nice setup. You can get the transmission temperature. Nice black and chrome. You can do manual shifting if you want. It doesn't have the paddle shifters. You got to shift it with this, but I mean, really, it's not that hard to do. Plus and minus, pretty simple, yeah. Has an off-road mode button. Tons of room. Fords always have tons of room in these original F-150s, only you know how it's a Raptor. Of course, it's all electronic. You can go 2-wheel high, 4-wheel low, and you got your towing adjustments here. Basically, it's a beefed up F-150. It's going to diagnose the whole thing with an auto scan. And while that's going on, you can see all the nice gauges: oil pressure, water temperature, fuel gauge, transmission temperature, and an actual readout from the temperature here. And it's modern enough that you can see this data's coming up pretty fast. So it's at 100%. That's all clean, and there's 3 codes. So, the driver dual climate control seat module. I mean, do we really care? We'll look at it anyways just to see what the heck it is. The cushion over temperature is detected, which means the heated seats got too hot, but what the heck? We'll just erase that. There we go. We'll look at this code too, which we're probably not going to care about, but we'll see what that code is. It's probably another squirrely one that we really don't care about. External memory card. Well, we really don't care about that either, so we will erase that one. And now comes the important one. It's got a code for the computer system, the ECM powertrain. Go. That's the important one. There's one code for that. We'll do the key on, engine off codes. It does it automatically. You can see it's turning things on and off by itself. I'm not doing this. It's testing everything. We'll see what codes it comes up with. Okay, it's got a code for the AC demand. We don't care about that. And the steering wheel angle sensor. That's inside here. So now we're going to do the key on, engine running. So we'll start it up. Push that. We'll do the testing, and as you can see, it's revving it up. I am not revving it up. Computer system's all checking it out. You can see the idle's down, it's going up a little, it's checking everything. I don't care about the AC. Brake switch out of read code range. Transmission control switch circuit out of read code range. And steering wheel angle sensor. The only thing that really is of interest to me here is the transmission control. P1780. Oh, either the transmission control switch that's at the bottom here is going bad, or the wiring from it to the transmission is going bad. So now we're going to go to live data. We'll start it back up. Go to live data. Now here's all the data. We'll see if there's anything odd, but we're going to be looking at transmission data as we road test. We're all fine, all 8. There's no faults. All sensors good at 6.2 liter. It's close to that. Solenoid pressure. There's no faults in any of them for the tranny. Now you can see we got the shift information here. I'm going to watch it while we're driving down the road. He's driving and I'm watching. Now we're watching the data. And so far the shifts are good. 360 milliseconds. Of course now it's 0 because we're coming to a stop. It's not shifted at all. We'll see what happens as we take off here. And it's pretty consistent. 615 milliseconds.
That's slow.
Stepping on it, and torque slip is pretty good. It's not outrageous. Ratio is perfectly fine. 1.007, 1.009, staying almost at 1, which is what you want. Putting the turbine shaft speed. Okay, now make it go fast. We'll see what it feels like now. Now, put it into firm shift mode, it shifted much firmer. This thing's got 127,000 miles on it. Of course, it's going to be worn some if you put it in the firm shift using my computer here. It goes a little faster, shifts a little firmer. That just shows that when he's got it normally and just to drive like he has now, you can feel a little bit less firm. And he said sometimes if he drives it hard and comes to a stop, it downshifts a little rough into first. That's the first thing that they start to do as they're aging. It's kind of a sign that, yeah, it's worn, but if you baby, it can still last quite some time. I put the firm shift on. Let's see what happens when we stop. Didn't clunk there.
It's way better.
See? You heard his voice. It's way better. Yes, because I put it on firm shift. You notice it shifts faster. It's not going up as high, and it's not as firm either. See, if this was a newer one, he could fiddle with all the stuff. He'd have electronic controls so he can do sport mode, track mode, you name it mode, right? So there you have it. You can see it still goes like stink. Now the owner did say a couple of years ago it would have been burning rubber like no tomorrow. It's got wear and tear on it, but there's no injector faults. There's no ignition faults. It's just got the stupid steering sensor, and he said that happened because Firestone aligned the front end. Obviously they didn't reset anything, but that's not going to affect any of the shifting. Now it bounces a little too, he was worried about, but hey, he's already been through 3 sets of shocks and those are a little worn down. He rides this thing rough. And as long as it still goes as good as it's going, the shift points weren't bad. If they were, say, 2.5 seconds instead of 680 milliseconds, yeah, then it's really on its way out. But the occasional clunk going into first gear, nothing to really worry about. Besides, he's got to do the diff over. We can feel a clunk in the back. He bought a new diff internals, but he put them in himself. Find a differential man if you want your differential done. I used to know Wayne in Houston. He's long dead. But doing that, I've seen so many guys screw up, and the worst thing is, I've seen guys do it. They're going down the highway and they lock up and the vehicles spin, sometimes roll over. Get a pro to install a differential. Buy a new one, but have the pros install them and bolt them in. Believe me, you want a professional to do a differential. That's just the way that it goes. Same thing with the tranny. If the tranny goes out, buy a factory reman unit. This one's still got tons of life left in it. Doesn't burn oil. Runs good. Sure, it gets bad gas mileage. It's a big giant truck. That's what they get. And since it's naturally aspirated V8, hey, something like this, you could keep fixing it and driving it forever. These naturally aspirated V8s will totally outlast those V6 twin turbos by far. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.